Brooklyn, New York, via Johnson City, Tennessee, comes rapper, producer, and engineer Jake Palumbo. Fresh off the release of his new album, Euthanasia For The Stupid, Jake Palumbo continues his tradition of sharp commentary, dark humor, and unfiltered perspective. In addition to his new album, he's built a deep catalog that includes projects such as plant-based Libtard, The 100,000 Hobo, and Jake It Till You Make It. He's also known for collaborating with heavyweights such as Psycho Les and the Beatnuts, The Sensei, Ruste Juxx, Craig G, and many more, while serving as founder and engineer behind Space Lab Recordings. Outside of the studio, Jake Palumbo's built a strong presence on social media, where his viral, off-the-wall, and often hilarious content has made him a standout personality. Tune in to learn about his journey in music, the making of Euthanasia For The Stupid, and what he's got coming next on the Cristopolis Show number 271. From Brooklyn, New York, via Tennessee, comes rapper, producer, and recording engineer Jake Palumbo. He recently released an album entitled Euthanasia For The Stupid. He's an incredibly dope producer and engineer and very entertaining rapper and social media performer. We're going to bring him in, talk to him about his impressive career and what he's got coming next. Let's bring him in. Peace, peace, peace.
Yo, what up? What up? What up?
I'm good, my brother. What an honor to have on the Renaissance man, the MC, producer, engineer, social media persona, Jake Palumbo.
Yo, it's great to be here, man. Thank you for having me. Talk about literally coming straight from work. I just finished with my last studio session at 6:55.
Wow.
Coming to you live from my vocal booth.
The smoke still coming off of
Yeah, right. We came straight from
engineering
work,
room.
live to Cristopolis, man.
I appreciate that, my brother. Thank you so much for making the time. I know that you're a very busy person because not only do you have a rap career, you also run your own studio, you're an engineer, you're a producer, and you manage to go viral from time to time.
Occasionally, right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I always say that it's the sum of the parts. Like, I'm not wildly rich and famous at any of them, but collectively together, like, they're all able to add up to a career. I'm interviewing with you, talking about my hip hop and my beats and rhymes, but
Yeah.
I just got off of my day job, which is being an engineer. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think it's the ability and the willingness to, kind of do a bunch of different things that, has kept me afloat for this long.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe you could like start by taking us back a little bit through your kind of history, your story. You're in New York City right now, but you're
Right.
originally from Tennessee. Talk to us about, that journey to the mecca of hip hop and then it working. Because for a lot of people, they do the journey, but it doesn't work. You know what I mean? So take us into the a little bit of Jake Palumbo's story.
It's a very long story, but to try to condense it, I've lived in Brooklyn, New York. May will make 20 years.
Wow.
So I've kind of reached a point where I lived half my life in Tennessee and half my life in Brooklyn. I call it dual citizenship. But yeah, I was born in East Tennessee. I lived around East Tennessee, like Knoxville, Johnson City, Morristown, different places. And, fell in love with music at a very young age, was always obsessed and into music. My father, was a musician, knew how to play a couple instruments. We always had my younger brother is like a virtuoso guitar player. My mother and father had a big record collection. There was always a lot of music in my house. So in a way, aside from briefly, I wanted to be a professional wrestler. The only other, career I ever was really interested in was doing music. So as a teenager was when I fell in love with hip hop via Public Enemy and the Wu-Tang Clan, and a lot of. Yeah, I had the luxury of being a kid in the '90s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as time goes on, I moved to Johnson City, Tennessee, when I was about 18, and that's when I really kind of like leapt head first into rapping. And at that time, I used to read these books about how to make it in the music business.
Yeah.
And they would always, at that time, the advice they would always give you was that, you need to establish yourself in your hometown, in your region first before trying to do anything else. And I don't know if that really applied to Johnson City, Tennessee at that
Right.
time. Because the reason being is we were still like a year or so away from the dawn of MySpace and like really having
Right.
access to the kind of tools that we have now where it doesn't matter. Like you can kind of be in rural America and, still build an
Yeah.
audience using the internet.
Yeah.
I was just right before that. So like trying to do underground rap for a living in Johnson City was an easy way to starve to death. And a girl I'd been dating in Johnson City got a job teaching high school in Brooklyn, in East New York. So
Oh,
she moves to Brooklyn.
wow.
So she offered me very kindly the usage of her couch. Um, so I had a place to stay in New York. So what I started doing was making frequent trips in my Jeep just to drive to New York and stay for a few
Yeah.
days. And I would go to Fat Beats and I would rhyme at the New Eurekan Poetry Cafe and like,
Yeah.
pass out CDs and just do the unsigned rapper thing. And I kind of reached a point in my life where I'm the type of person that I need to just jump into the deep end of the pool and try to not drown.
Right. That's how you learn to swim.
That's how I learned to swim. And so, 2006, I just made the leap for it and I moved to New York. Uh, what ended up happening was, I got a job when I moved here and I was interning at a recording studio because
Oh,
by that
wow.
point I had already self-released a couple projects and was recording and mixing and producing in my bedroom. I knew basically what I was doing. I just needed to kind of apprentice under veterans and whatnot. So
Yeah.
I'm working my job and doing my internship at the studio. Everything's going fine. And then in about 72 hours, like my life changes forever because I was on my way back. I was doing a show at Westchester University in Pennsylvania. I performed for about 30 college kids in the like student union building. And when I get back,
Yeah.
I find out that my job is closing. At the end of the week, I'm being laid off. So as soon as that happens, one of the engineers at the studio I was interning at quit. And they needed an engineer to record this guy named Wise, and I got $40 for that. The following day or the day after that, I was hustling beats on Craigslist at that time. Like just
Wow.
I had like a link to a SoundClick page or something like that.
Yeah. Old school sound click.
So the next day, a rapper named Wally Dutch, who I never saw again, bought 3 beats off of Craigslist. I got like $450 for that. I met him in the parking lot of a Dwayne Reed and gave him a
Y'all did a
CDR.
transaction. You did like a
Yeah.
you in the parking lot.
So I'm saying that to say that from that time till the present, I've had to just completely survive off doing this because what happened was after I lost my job, I tried very hard to find another job and I was not
Yeah.
having any luck at it. And it became easier to find rappers that needed studio time or needed mixing and mastering and make money that way. That a temporary solution just ended up becoming like a long-term day job as I grew my clients
Wow.
and as I kept networking. I know that was a really long answer
No,
to your
it's
question, but
fascinating.
that's kind of what happened is that, yeah, like November 2008, all that happened at once, and ever since then, I've just had to make it work. Like I don't sell weed, I don't drive Uber. Like the sum of all the parts, as I said, I've been able to survive and keep a roof over my head.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's went very well, sometimes it's not. That's why I
Yeah.
named an album "The 100,000 Air Hobo," because there's been times I was 100,000 air, and there's been times I was just above a hobo.
Yeah.
And the key is to try to find a comfortable place in the middle. But yeah, I've been on this journey for a minute, man. It's I always say like it was a very slow grind, but the good part is it never went backwards. Like it grew very slowly, but it continuously grew uphill and still is.
Yeah.
So
And that's really interesting. I appreciate the details. Is homegirl who first let you sleep on the couch, is she still in New York?
no, actually, she moved to Korea at one point, and we ended up losing touch at a later on. But
Yeah.
I'm grateful, very grateful to her because she threw me a few alley oops like that.
Yeah,
But no, having a couch to crash on in Brooklyn like helped facilitate me being here today.
yeah.
So yeah,
It's always interesting to me those pivotal people like her, Willie Dutch, all these people that, it was now you may have that transaction. You have, a dozen couches you could crash on and a dozen people trying to buy beats from you or get
right.
studio time. But at that moment, that critical couch or that critical purchase of beats was the difference between, you know, you
Yeah.
staying. Yeah, you staying.
It's like being in a video game and you've only got one life left. And, you just got to get to the next checkpoint where you get a one up. So, yeah, no, definitely.
That's fascinating. You shared with us that you were working at the studio and that you had already, released some independent recordings. Talk to us about how you started recording yourself, producing for yourself, that whole part of it, because a lot of people rap, freestyle's been very popular. People can just jump on a beat and do it. And then if you're really good or you really work at it, you could develop the ability to make songs. But the
Right.
production part of it and the recording part of it, especially at a level that's good enough to work in the studio, that's a more uncommon, especially for the person that's also on the mic. Talk to us about how you develop those skills.
It all started with, like I said, just having a musical foundation. Like there was a lot of music and instruments in my house. So I started playing instruments as a child, playing guitar and keys. My parents got me a drum set when I was about 12 years old.
Wow.
I was in the school orchestra for about 3 years. I did get kicked out for being a disciplinary problem. But I was there long enough to learn basic music theory, which
Yeah.
has given me a tremendous advantage, later on, being a full-time producer and making beats and whatnot. But the foundation was playing instruments and studying records and things like that. When I was a teenager, I played in a few different bands, like garage bands with, fellow students and whatnot. But where that became limited is like when you're in a band, you're like one type of band. Like we're a punk
Yeah.
band or we're whatever, a metal band or whatever. Whereas like my music tastes can change from Monday to Tuesday.
Yeah.
And so what really made me fall in love with hip hop is that musically it's the most limitless music that
Yeah.
there is because you can rap over rock, funk, jazz, soul, electronic music, accordions,
Yeah.
klezmer music, dissonant noise, like, as long as the beat is hitting, there's infinite possibilities. So when I fell in love with hip hop as a teenager and I started studying the Bomb Squad and especially the RZA,
Oh,
uh,
interesting.
as soon as I wrapped my brain around the concept of a hip hop producer as kind of like a one man band with a
Yeah.
drum machine and a keyboard and a sampler and, all these different tools, it dawned on me that like, hey, I could do this. Like I have enough musical chops, like I could do this. So I started making beats came first. So
Oh,
I
interesting.
started making beats, on just really low budget, crappy, sad, bad news bears equipment. Um, and
Well, what was
as
the
time
first?
goes,
What was the first machine? Like, what's the first machine that you started kind of, or first DAW that you started kind of chopping stuff on?
well, it's funny you ask about the doll because when I was about maybe 18 or 19, I was saving up to buy an ADAT machine,
Yeah, I know
which was
about the
like a
ADATs.
recording standard
That
at
was
the
a big
time.
deal. You had to daisy chain them to get 16 tracks, get two
Right.
of them, right? Yeah.
Because one ADAT would record 8 tracks.
Eight.
So if
Yeah.
you needed 16 tracks, you needed two ADATs. An ADAT was like $2,000. So I
Yeah.
was saving my money to get an ADAT. And God bless the dead, one of my old bandmates, Mike Marshall, showed me this program called Cool Edit Pro.
I know about cool edits. Yeah, that's the joint from back in the day.
Yes. So he told me, he was like, if you can get a computer, I'll hook you up with this. Now, I was working in the Sears warehouse at the time. And so I went back to work on Monday and I stole a computer out of the warehouse. I put the computer into a thing of garbage bins, and when I was making a garbage run, I snuck that shit into my Jeep Cherokee, and I took it home. And Mike hooked me up, and I was off to the races. And that's when the Space Lab was born in my bedroom back in Johnson City. So I
Wow.
started on Cool Edit Pro. I didn't get onto Pro Tools and Logic and stuff like that until about '08 when I
Yeah.
started interning at the studio. Those early records like Future Dead Rapper and District Selectman, like that was all done on Cool Edit Pro. Which was a
Wow.
very primitive pro. It worked, but it was a very primitive program. Like,
Yeah. And would you do the vocals and the production on Cool Edit?
I would basically, yeah. Because when I was making beats at that time, I had a lot of different sources. My original sampler was a Sony mini disc that I also stole from my job at Sears.
Yo,
Uh,
shout out to Sears.
Shout out to
Sears made the
Sears.
career happen. Thank you, Sears.
The statute of limitations has expired on this crime. I looked it up.
Yeah, I think you're in a different state also, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I
But
think Sears has gone out of business. I don't
I
even know
don't
if they're
even.
around.
I think they're out of business, right?
Thank you,
Um,
Sears.
but anyway, I used to sample vinyl into the Sony mini disc because it had a loop feature. And so I would
Oh,
loop samples on the mini disc and then try to sync that up with the drum pattern on my drum machine with no MIDI,
wow.
nothing. So like eventually I started buying real equipment like as time
Yeah.
passed and getting, an ASRX and an MP7 and, things of that nature. Like as the years kept going, I kept upping my. Although even to this day, like all the equipment I use, the newest piece of gear in my studio is MPC Renaissance, which I think is like maybe 2014.
Okay.
Like all my gear for the computer that runs our Pro Tools rig that I record and mix all your favorite rappers on. I'm running a 2010 Mac Pro,
Yeah.
running a very outdated version of OS Mountain Lion or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
No,
So
no software updates. They're gonna mess
none.
everything up. It's locked
Exactly.
down.
My stuff sounds good the way I like it. I'm holding out on the island. But yeah, no, I mean it's been an evolving journey. But the musical foundation led to the production. Once you start making enough beats, because I'm like an opinionated person with just a lot of silly ideas and things to say, like eventually you start kicking bad freestyles over your beats. And then that kind of turns into, taking writing rhymes seriously. You know what I mean?
Wow. Wow.
So I think I got nice at the beats much faster than I did on the mic. Like finding my voice as an MC took a little bit longer. But yeah, it all goes back to the musical foundation. Music's been in my life since I was a child.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's man, I really appreciate the story. It's so rich, all the detail. As a person that started off more in the beats, I'm imagine, you started getting a library of, probably hundreds of beats. Um, that probably led to you, especially back in that era where you didn't have like a BeatStars or things like that. So whoever had the beats was king, right?
Right.
Like that was like the most popular and it beats and a studio, right? So I imagine that that happened not only in Tennessee but in New York. Can you talk to us about maybe like an early experience, whether it's a person that's well known or not, but because you had studio and beats came through and you were like blown away because some people's talent in certain areas is just mind-boggling. And I've seen people in the studio before that they come in and they're so effortless with the way that
Yeah.
they rhyme and put songs together, sometimes on the spot, sometimes it's not on the spot, but it's just amazing to watch genius at work. Can you share with us as a producer first, right? What a moment that you experienced?
There's so many. It's difficult to name. Like I've been blessed to work with like a lot of my favorite MCs, like the people that, I listen to as a fan completely outside of working with them. Like, from God Bless the Dead, Sean Price to Roc Marciano to Royce the 5'9", literally everybody in the boot camp clique. The people I've made albums with. The thing that I've found is that when you can get an artist in a zone where they're comfortable,
Yeah.
things tend to flow very easily. usually when things are not coming together, there's some kind of outside influence. So, like, my job, both in the producer's chair and in the engineer's chair, is to create an environment where the artist literally forgets that we're in the room and they're performing an imaginary concert, for an audience on the other side of this sound baffle.
Yeah.
And that's when I think, I've told the story, like, just a random one off the top of my head, when I was working with Roc from Helter Skelter on the Roc Ness AP album. He did most of that album at my studio. Roc was really interesting in that, like, we'd just be sitting there with the beat playing for like 2 hours, and he'd be
Wow.
telling all kinds of hilarious stories and cracking everybody up. And, like, I don't see him scribbling bars, like, at any point.
Right. It's all up here.
And so, an hour or two passes or whatever, and then all of a sudden he'll look at his phone, he'll type a couple things, and he'll be like, I'm ready. And he goes into the booth, and he's got this, like, uber technical, highly structured verse that I'm like, how did you do that? We were just laughing and, talking shit. Like, there's so many different stories of that nature. But I guess the one thing that I try to do is just create that environment where they can be themselves, because when an artist is not thinking about it too hard, that's when things come together really easily.
Yeah.
When they're overthinking it, that's when you're in the studio, for hours, doing all kinds of takes and stuff like that. But no, there's times I still bug out, like, at a lot of the people that I do work with. It's never lost on me that, like,
Yeah.
the people that are my hip hop heroes are in many cases my friends and colleagues now.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So, like,
Absolutely.
that's never lost on me. I'm hyper grateful for that. But nah, it's I think a lot of people do. At least I hear this from people, is that, they say they're really comfortable in here, just coming in and they get their work done and then they're out. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where, like, the producer, engineer, or sometimes it's the same person, does a lot of the heavy lifting for the artists. Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot of the learning instinct of, like, I can tell when this person's about to run out of breath and they might want to punch in. Or I can tell that, like, these ad libs were good up to this point, but they may not like this one. Let's pick them up here. It's like, when you can just learn that instinct, that you can just lock in with an artist, and to where you really don't even have to say much to each other. So
Yeah.
I don't know. There's been a lot. There's been so many magical moments in this booth. With a lot of my favorite MCs. It's I could be here all day.
That's really dope. Yeah, that's really good. The recent album, Euthanasia for the Stupid, right? Incredible album. The production on it is really dope. Did you produce that whole album?
Entire album. All my solo albums are self-produced. That's kind of, in a way, that's kind of like part of my steez as an
Right,
artist. Like, in the
it's part
same
of the
way,
shtick. If it
it's
has
part
your
of my
name
shtick.
on it,
Right.
right?
I'm on the beats and on the mic. But yeah, no, I did the whole album per usual. A lot of the beats on Euthanasia for the Stupid came together pretty easily. I was on a roll, as far as I had more to pick from than I could have ever. It would have been a triple album if I'd have used all the beats I had. But that's okay though, because those beats will go on other albums I'm doing with people. But no, thank you. It's having come off of the album before that, because I kind of went on this trajectory to where I
Right,
released plant-based Libtard, which,
right.
today,
That
by
like
most
that blew
metrics,
up.
is my most successful project. And then I followed that up with The Violence of Healing, which is, uh,
Very powerful album. Very powerful.
thank
Like
you.
you're talking a lot of heavy
Right.
concepts.
It's a man having a psychiatric meltdown over beats. But saying that to say that, like, yeah, it's this deep artistic statement, but it was maybe the most unmarketable album that I could have followed up plant-based libtard with. It was just something I had to get off my chest. So
Yeah,
saying that to say that by the time I had gotten that record out, and been in therapy for a few years, um, I was back, like, ready to bore out. Like, I was really ready
Yeah.
to just, like, I was really just ready to get back to the mission. And it's kind of like Euthanasia for the Stupid is kind of like Jake Palumbo made his statement on plant-based Libtard. Then he had to go to the psych ward. He's been released from the psych ward and he's feeling better now and he's back to continue to. That's kind of what Euthanasia for the Stupid was. And it was interesting in that, like, a lot of the same circumstances in the world exist at
Right
that
now.
time that did back then.
Yeah.
We're dealing with all kinds of stupidity and hatred and, just horrible things going on in the world. It was kind of the perfect time for it. But production wise, I definitely wanted to try to stick to, you know, that southern tinged boom bap that lets me bore out, you know what I mean, and really get my point across on it. So it did kind of tend to stick to those themes. But no, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's like you said you called it Southern tinge boom bap. It's got a little rock element in the boom bap, right? Like a
A little
little
bit.
rock heavy boom bap. I love it. It's really dope. A little bit reminiscent to me of early Boogie Down Productions. It had a lot of rock in it also, right?
Thank you.
KRS and Scotland Rock used to get in that bag, you know.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. For if people haven't heard the album, right? You do a great job with the narrator. The narrator is classic. The narrator is awesome. Maybe you could unpack for us what the name Euthanasia for the Stupid means. The narrator talks about it. And talk to us about this infamous narrator. Is he dying next album?
You got to wait and see. So to answer your first part of your question, the album title comes from. I had a bar a long time ago that said, "My truth in the booth is euthanasia for the stupid." Meaning,
A dope
my
bar. That's a
bars and the
dope
truth
bar.
that I'm spitting is, it's antidote for the idiocracy out here. So I had said that in a song a long time ago. So once I got to making the album, I noticed that there was, like, a recurring theme to a lot of these bars I was writing, and that was me raging against idiots and, how stupid the world has gotten and how much, like, bad, incorrect information, like, influences,
Yeah.
real outcomes with real consequences in our lives. And I just started getting madder and madder. And um, I thought about that time I said my truth in the booth is euthanasia for the stupid. And then, per usual, I just started laughing about it. And I was like, that's it. It's euthanasia for the stupid. Like, we're going to just incinerate these people in a blender. And yeah, of course, obviously, that's hyperbolic. I'm not calling for, genocide of anyone with a low IQ. But so that was that. There was a second part to your question. What was the other part of the question?
So the narrator, right? The
Oh, the
narrator,
narrator. Yeah.
the narrator, right, makes his appearance in Thousand Air Hobo, right?
So,
And is
right.
journeyed with us. The narrator is a part of the trajectory of the Jake Palumbo catalog. Everything, the whole Jake Palumbo universe.
Yes.
But the narrator makes a comment in the intro of Euthanasia for the Stupid that the next album may be his last. I mean, so whatever you're willing to share about that statement.
No, I'll tell you the whole story. If you've never heard it, I've got this narrator that does an intro to all my solo albums where he explains previously on Jake Palumbo,
It's
kind
great.
of
It's
gives a
genius
rundown.
because you capture on information that if somebody's picking up something for the first time, they get familiar in a minute. In a minute, they get
Yes.
familiar, right? It's really really dope the way you've done the whole everything. Plus, it's really creative. It's the voice is designed to keep you engaged and make you feel comfortable.
Right. He sounds like this kind of distinguished, British, actor. And so over the years, people have asked me, like, is that a real person or is that a robot? Now, it's not an AI voice generator because those didn't really exist back when I made the 100,000 Air Hobo. What it actually was I found this software online. It's called a TTY software, and it's used to help deaf people communicate over the telephone, where they can type whatever they want to say, and then this robot would read it back to you. And then when you talk on the phone to them, the robot would translate that them to text. So I found this software and just started typing with it. I was kind of laughing at the voice. So me being the, sadistic madman that I am, I typed out this whole intro and made him the narrator to my album. So from that album to the present, like all my, he's been on 5 albums now. Wait, 100,000 Air Hobo, Plant-Based Libtard, Transient Ischemic Attack, Violence of Healing, and Euthanasia for the Stupid.
Yeah,
So he's
5
done the
albums.
intro to 5 albums now. So what ended up happening was when it came time to finish Euthanasia for the Stupid, I write out the script and I go to this TTY website to, generate my voice. And they had gotten rid of the voice that I always used.
The Jake Palumbo voice.
Yes. So his name, it was funny, his name was Gabriel. So I write this email to the company like, hello, this is going to sound very strange, but I've been using your product to make the intro to my rap album since 2019. And is there any way I could pay you to just get access to the model, blah, blah, blah? I get an email back, and they had no interest. They were just like, yeah, no, we don't have that voice anymore, sorry. So I couldn't release the album without the narrator. So what I ended up having to do, now at this time, by the time we get to Euthanasia for the Stupid, AI voiceovers are everywhere. They're commonplace. Yeah. Like, every YouTube video I watch is an AI voiceover.
Right.
And they mispronounce shit, and I have very complicated feelings about AI in general, and most of them are not positive. But I was stuck. I was in a bind. I was like, what am I going to do? I can't generate the voice. So what I was forced to do was I went into the session files of one of my old albums. I muted all the music to the intro, and I bounced out an a cappella of the narrator talking.
Of Gabriel.
Of Gabriel, right. And I had to feed that into 11 Labs.
Yeah, so you went into that 11 Lab.
I paid for a 1-month subscription to 11 Labs so that I could get this voice generated. And it worked. It sounded exactly like it should. And so then as I was sitting there thinking about it, I'm like, this is so crazy. Like, we have to use AI to emulate this product that we used to. And so I just have really over-the-top humor anyway.
Well, and so the voice does sound a little bit different. It's a little bit. It's a little bit, and it's weird because I don't know. It's because like sometimes you get into whatever's current, you're into it. I kind of like it. I kind of noticed the difference. I didn't know if you know what I thought it was because the production and everything on the new album is so stellar, right? And so it happens to me that I follow people's careers, so
Right.
I'm just like Jake is just taking it up every level. He's getting better analog equipment. He's getting better with the chops. You know, he's working with Psycho Les and Elder Sensei and the boot camp. He's just getting better and better and better. But I didn't realize that it wasn't Gabriel.
Yeah, so I mean, we were able to fake it enough that nobody noticed. But yeah, I had to actually emulate it on 11 Labs. So I wanted to make a commentary about AI anyway. I don't think the super short answer is I don't think all AI is inherently bad, but I think it is by design made for human replacement. And I think it is being used to create a surveillance state. And it will one day be used to convict people of crimes that they didn't commit while also putting lots of people out of jobs. So I just don't want to rush towards that. So I wanted to somehow make a commentary about that. So that's why I had, Gabriel, our narrator, I had him talk about, how this started out as a joke. Like, this was all supposed to be you figuring out, like, is that really a person or no? But then today, we actually live in that world.
Yeah.
So I wanted him to make a commentary on that. And then just because I have a sick sense of humor, I was like, that's why I feel like I'm responsible for it, and I'm going to commit suicide on the next album. Um, you know, we'll see how it goes. The story hasn't been written yet, but our narrator is on suicide watch right now, yes.
Right, because you're still living off of the high and the wave of a really dope album, Euthanasia for the Stupid, available on all DSPs. Incredible album, incredible production, mixing, and rhymes and song concepts, and a very well put together album. So you're not thinking about what's coming next,
Right.
but Gabriel's on notice.
Right. We got to figure it out, man. Yeah.
That's
So,
amazing. So we touched a little bit on AI, and it is a question, through my interviews, I'm documenting time, right? I'm documenting this moment in time. I'm documenting thought leaders and creatives in hip hop. And I am curious, if you could kind of unpack a little bit more your thoughts on AI in regards to production, sampling, mixing, mastering, and then maybe overall just what you already touched on a little bit, is overarching AI, surveillance state, and those types of things. It's a very important topic because 3 years from now we have answers.
right. I've just not had any real desire to use it in my art just because I'm in a really happy place.
Yeah,
Like, I don't need AI to generate samples for me because I still enjoy record digging and I'm still
yeah,
finding records that I never found before and rare stuff. And I can play instruments. So, like, I don't need it to make chord progressions for me. Um, the only thing the other thing too, I guess my main complaint as far as people that use a lot of AI for their content is that it's made people fine with things just being okay. Like, I see so many videos where like the translation on the screen is misspelled because the robot heard it wrong, and they
yeah,
didn't take 5 minutes to just go in there and correct the spelling.
yeah,
It's stuff like that. That, like, even occasionally I will use the auto caption on my. What if I make Instagram? I'll let the robot make an auto caption. But I take 2 minutes to click on it and make sure everything is spelled correctly. It is
yeah,
presented the way I want it. AI is getting people into a place where they don't do these things anymore. It's
yeah,
relaxing their quality control to where you're just putting out stuff that looks whatever because you can do it with minimal to no effort or money. So saying that to say, like, in my music and my production, I get everything I need done with records and instruments and old dusty equipment, and I'm having fun doing it, so I don't feel the need to incorporate a robot into that. The only thing that AI could maybe help me with is graphic design,
yeah.
because that's one thing I don't do myself, and I'm always in need of artwork and stuff like that. But
Right, with your
then
dope
I think
covers,
about,
right? The covers. You have a certain style of album cover that you do that's really dope. You need some
thank
help
you.
with that, right?
Well, right. So for my solo album covers are done by Jack Simpson, aka Ali Ox. He's been my homie for 25 years. But
Shout
but
out Ali
you have
Ox because the
singles
covers are
and stuff.
dope.
In between you've got singles and show flyers and like there's other things you need graphic design for. So like AI can help me with that. But then also I think about like the people that I hire when I need to do that.
Yeah,
And like if I stop using them, like even if I'm only spending $50, $100 at a time with them,
yeah,
I'm cutting off another little stream of income for them. So like
yeah,
I just wish people would consider the fact that this is planned for human replacement. And the way that they're selling it to you is by telling you how much easier it's going to make your life. But meanwhile, they're using it to, make us obsolete. So
yeah,
just from an artistic aesthetic standpoint, I have no real use for AI. What I think AI should be doing is scanning decades of medical research to cure cancer. I think it should be writing codes that help. You know, there's ways that they could apply AI. The other thing too is that we're going to run out of clean water one day. Like, and I sound insane to some people saying these things. I look
yeah,
like that meme of Charlie Day with with the chalkboard, like trying to show you. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that I feel like they're using convenience to sell it to you, but there is a sinister plan behind it.
Yeah.
So my AI involvement is minimal. I don't by default hate AI. I don't rage at people who use it if they use it, but I just don't.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's as a prolific engineer, producer, and artist that owns your own studio and that is not afraid of technology. You use technology every day, whether it's machines or whether it's a computer or whether it's the internet like this. You're not a person that's not familiar with technology. So I think it's really valuable to hear your perspectives as a creative and to understand kind of like right now in 2026, where is a producer that's working with the who's who in hip hop in New York City, the mecca of hip hop, what's the vibe, what are the feelings? So it's really interesting to hear your perspective. Um, New York City right now, not to go too far off subject, but it's somewhat related with the new mayor, and then you piggyback that with AI and the thousands of jobs that are being lost daily at this point. And not like janitor jobs. These are like
Right,
people who went and got right. This is
right,
supposed to be the safe um computer cyber security guy, the
right,
information technology people. Those are being cut out in the thousands. You've got one person doing what 30 people used to do, and they just are an AI operator. So there's been a lot of talk, and ties back to New York and currently Mamdani. Something similar is happening in LA right now with the mayor race. There's a lot of talk about universal basic income and what's going to happen over the next decade. You touched on this a little bit on you're taking a job from somebody. How was that income replaced? Um, any thoughts on that?
I'm honestly not educated enough on the topic of universal basic income and how it works infrastructure wise to say it with a
Yeah,
confident opinion, but I don't have a problem with it. The reason being is that, like, if we're stuck in this capitalist fiat currency society, right,
yeah,
our money is valueless. So the only way that it has value is when it's in motion. A
yeah.
client pays me $200 for a studio session, and then I
Right,
go take $100 and buy sneakers, and I take the other $100 and buy weed, and then the weed
right.
guy has $100 now, so he goes and pays his light bill. And that's keeping money in circulation is the only way that it has any kind of value. So I'm saying that to say that, like, I would presume that if we had universal basic income, like, what that's going to do is create the ability for more people to keep more money circulating through the economy, which is the
Yeah,
only way to, I guess, combat the dollar from continuously tanking through
yeah.
inflation. As a disclaimer, I am not a financial analyst. I am an aging white rapper with a high school diploma. But, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is that, like, it's kind of like when they did the stimulus checks. Like, everybody took that money and then recirculated it back through the economy. Like, that's
Yeah,
why they do it. You know what I mean?
right.
So,
Everybody
but
bought polo sneakers. Everybody got polo sneakers and weed.
right,
It's the studio time. You were living good.
right. No, real talk. I actually, not for nothing. Like, I had a pretty good year during COVID.
Yeah,
Because people were in the house and they, were making albums in their homes and sending them to me to mix. So I got a lot of work that year.
yeah,
But now the only other thing I'd add to that is I do not trust the government one iota to ever give us universal basic income. I think they would kill us off before they would ever help us thrive.
right. Starve us first.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a really interesting subject that's current. It's happening, changing real time, day to day, week by week. There's more and more information coming out, so I appreciate the perspective.
Yeah.
We talked about your rich discography, plant-based libtard. Went bananas for you, right? But the violence of healing is an incredible album. You're very vulnerable on that album, and then right now, euthanasia for the stupid. The discography goes further back. if people are discovering Jake Palumbo through this interview or through some of your recent work or your production, and they haven't come across the discography, and they come across the discography, what album or two would you direct them to if you just had to be like, pick up this one, and you'll get, start there and then go for the rest of it.
Got you. As a rapper, I would probably start with plant-based Libtard.
Yeah,
As a producer, I would probably start with me and the Sensei solving cases.
very dope
Um,
album.
so plant-based Libtard, I guess, as a rapper is probably my magnum opus. I'm gonna try to top it in the future, but if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, it was probably my magnum opus. Some people, everybody's got their own opinions. Some people really like Jake It Till You Make It because it's
Yeah,
got the most, I guess you'd say, famous guest list. Showing prices on there, Roc Marciano, Smith and Wesson, Ruste. A lot of people are on that album. But no, I would probably start at plant-based Libtard as a rapper. As a producer, I would probably start with me and the Sensei because I think that
wow.
is some of my finest beats, and we made just a really good, feel-good hip-hop album.
Yeah,
The reason I do the projects that I do, the duo projects where it's me on the beats and somebody
yeah.
else on the mic,
Right,
is
your
that
name's on
like,
the project, right? Like
right,
it's literally not you just gave a beat or two. This is Elder Sensei and Jake Palumbo solving
right.
cases.
I did the whole album. Like every bit of music you hear is mine. So like for those type of albums, and I've done albums with I did an album with Ruste Juxx. I've got one with Q Unique, Lex the Hexmaster, a bunch of people. But the thing I learned a while back is that not everyone is going to like me as a rapper. What I do is very different and outspoken, and it's a little odd at first if you're not prepared for it. So not everybody's going to like me as a rapper, and that's fine because I rap for an audience of one,
Yeah,
and it's me. Now, as a producer, if you don't like my beats, I think you're either deaf or hating.
yeah,
But saying that to say is that I make so many more beats than I could ever rap on. Like you said earlier, like I have hundreds and hundreds of tracks in the stash.
yeah.
Even after all the music that we've put out, there's still hundreds of tracks in the
Wow.
stack. So, it's very easy for me to just let a rapper sit down and pick 10 beats that they like, and we lock in the studio and make an album. And, if you like them as a rapper, I'm still getting in your headphones and your stereo.
Yeah,
You're listening to my music still.
yeah,
So, that's what I'm saying. So I've picked up fans that way that maybe they're not the biggest fan of me as a rapper, but they like the shit I did with somebody else and they think
yeah,
those beats are slamming. I'm fine with that. Like as long as you're listening to something I did, I'm happy. Um,
yeah,
but and that's also a way too that I can branch out a little bit and kind of do different sounds because all those albums I just named are very different. Like the El Sensei album is more up tempo and it's more
yeah.
kind of b-boy breakdancing and graffiti type of
Right, the
uh,
artifacts.
more artifact style hip hop. Whereas like the album with me and Lex the Hexmaster, that's like boom bap horrorcore. In a
Yeah,
way, like so it's dope being able to just lock in with so many different types of artists, like so many different MCs that like are all dope in their own right, but those albums are all unique from each other, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. That's really good. There's people you've worked with like Ruste Juxx that are prolific. Many albums per year. But Elder Sensei is not, doesn't have that same output. But he's a legend, right?
Right.
I mean, that like Wrong Side of the Tracks. Come on, that's forever a hip hop anthem.
Forever.
Talk to us about how you got that opportunity to work with him, how you convinced him, or how he heard the beats and was like, did it start with one song or three songs? Then it became, because the Elder Sensei album is the one that's kind of like, oh, he got a whole album of Elder Sensei.
Right. So the year was 2014. And I met this manager named Patrick Kostelak. And shout out to Patrick because Through meeting Patrick at that time, he was managing Shabam Sadiq, El Gant, El the Sensei, and I met Razkaz through him too.
Right.
And
Nothing
all
but
four of those
legends.
guys, I've done a lot of work with, and I love them all dearly. And we're good to this day. But I meet Patrick, and Patrick tells me he's working with El the Sensei, and El is doing an album with Sadat X, and they've got a song that they need mixed. And he's like, if you can mix the song for El, like he'll do a verse on one of your joints. I said, okay, great. So El comes to the
Reasonable
studio.
enough. Reasonable enough.
Yeah, totally. So El comes to the studio. I mix his song. The song was called War. It's on the XL album. And, there was time for him to do my verse. And we start going through beats, and he records that became the song Last Laugh that day. But he records to it, and he asks, like, can I hear some more beats? And so I play him some more beats, and I play him some more beats, and play him some more beats, and we're listening. And as he was leaving that night, I was happy just to get a verse from El the Sensei.
Yeah.
As he was leaving that night, as he's walking out the door, he turns around, he's like, we should just do a project. I was like, oh my God. So that was an expert lesson in patience.
Yeah.
Because we laid the first verse for Solving Cases in the summer of 2014.
Wow.
The album came out in September 2021.
Wow.
It was 7 years from start to finish, and it was only because El and I were both doing so many different things.
Yeah.
Because El put out the XL album with Sadat. He had a bunch of projects with and I did other stuff, and he did an Artifacts album, and things like that. We just had so much on our plate that we were only able to get together to work on Solving Cases, and, every couple months. And but the positive thing is that it was slow cooked to perfection.
Yeah.
And the lesson that really taught me is that there's no expiration date on good music.
Yeah.
Unless you literally timestamp it by saying the year in the lyrics.
Right.
You
You
know,
remember when they used to do that all the time?
yo, it's
Right?
98, son.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. So if you don't do that, like when we put the album out, nobody had any idea which songs were recorded in 2014 or 15 or 16 or 20 or 21.
Yeah.
Nobody knew. So that really taught me a lesson in that, like, there is no expiration date on music. But he and I just very patiently did that album, and El is my big brother forever and a day. I got so much love for him because he
Yeah.
was one of the first artists. But by that point, I was starting to get some props as an engineer. But my beats and my bars were being overlooked.
Wow.
Let's just say, and El the Sensei was one of the first legendary artists that was not afraid to get online and say, these beats are crazy. I don't know what y'all are talking about. If you don't want them, that's more for me.
Wow.
And, Elf co-signed of me at that time. God, we're in 2016 now. We're talking like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
But, we developed a very close personal friendship as my brother to the end. We are doing a Solving Cases too. It's kind of
Oh.
a similar thing. Like El
Right.
just got
It's
back
slow
from
cooking.
tour. He just got back from tour overseas with Mr. Lynn, and same thing. We only get a chance to get together every few months, but we are doing a part two. We've got a couple songs recorded already. I've
That's
got a ton
dope.
of beats. We got a few picked to the side, but there is going to be a part two.
That's dope. That's dope. Thanks for sharing that and all that background. The Euthanasia for the Stupid just came out at the very end of 2025, new album, really. But you're always at work, with other artists. Is there anybody that, you're an album that you're producing now that you can share? If there's something kind of coming up that you want to let us know about, just like a summer or fall project that people should know is coming?
There's all kinds of stuff coming. I just, as a mix engineer, I just mixed the new the Beat Minders and John Brown album that's coming out pretty soon. I mixed that. Let's see. As a rapper, Craig G and I formed a duo called Antisocial Superheroes,
That's dope. And
and
that's the
we have
name of the
already,
group.
yes, like we're a duo called Antisocial Superheroes. We've already recorded a full album. I'm in the process of mixing it now. We're going to have a single out soon. But Craig is another one. Similar to what I said with L, that like it will always mean the world to me that, he
Yeah.
spoke up. It was like, yo, this guy's my guy. He's dope. Y'all need to, fuck with him. But I've known Craig for several years. He's on Plant Based Libtard. He's on
Yeah.
Big Top Clown Circus. But he's been recording here at the studio for a few years, and we just became friends. And one of the things that we have in common is I like to joke and say that like we're nice, polite grouches, and that like Craig and I both are like kind of grumpy, but we're not like outwardly rude or anything like that. We just don't like a lot of idle conversation from strangers. We have
Yeah.
a low social battery sometimes. And so Craig and I just had a lot of jokes about, being antisocial and Irish goodbying places and, things of
What
that
did you say?
nature.
Irish goodbye? What is
Yeah.
that?
So the Irish goodbye is when you're in a bar or a club and you leave without saying goodbye to anyone.
I never heard
So
that.
on Plant Based Libtard, on the song that Craig's on his verse, he ends his verse with "Every time I go out, people ruining my high." So that's why I'm the master of the Irish goodbye. And so,
Oh,
Craig and I would laugh about how, like, yeah, we will be at a club and, it'll be now you see me and then now you don't. Like, I
right.
dipped out, I'm on my way home, I'm getting ready to go to
I'm at
bed.
home. I'm at
Right,
home already.
right. So, we just kind of connected. The album that we made is very, it's very snarky, it's very wise ass, it's very get out of my face and don't talk to me. There's a lot of discussion about other local rappers. I mean, we're not like calling out people by name, but like we're talking about the phenomenon of how like most rappers in any scene in any city, when you're out at events, people are always like being extra and doing too much and,
Yeah.
trying to just, put on this performative act, whether it's schmoozing and hobnobbing or whether it's a fake tough guy act. Like everybody's got
Yeah.
this, I'm a
Everybody's a
lifelong wrestling.
persona, especially in hip hop, right? Everybody's like it's like a Marvel comic book, right? Everybody's this persona.
I always relate it to wrestling because I've been a wrestling fan my whole life, and it's like we're wrestlers. Like we come out and we pound their chest and talk about how we're going to destroy you and things of that
Right.
nature. But basically, like we're talking about, when you go out to a lot of these events, everybody is being very performative, and we can't stand that. Like, just be cool and be yourself, and everything will be fine. So
Yeah.
we made a really wise-assed album about that. So me and Craig will have the Antisocial Superheroes album
That's
coming
dope.
out this summer. I've got an album with M. Ski from the Good
Yeah.
People.
Yeah.
Me and M. Ski did a 10-song album. The third single just came out. It's called Keyboard Castro Killer. It came out on Tuesday last week. That album's getting ready to come out. Me and Greasy did a project together. That'll be out at the end of the summer. Um, what else have I got? I've got an instrumental album that's going to be coming called The Food's Great, but the service is terrible. Um, I'm always working on something. Whether it's me on the beats or whether it's me on the mic or whether it's mixing and mastering somebody else's project, that I'm always working on. I've been working with DJ Third Rail a lot in Chicago. He does the
Dope.
Subway hip hop series of, they're like vinyl only EPs. I've been mixing all of those for him. Yeah, man, I be drawing a blank sometimes. It's like I do so much
No, it's
work, it
good.
all
No,
runs
it's a
together.
lot. It's a lot. That's dope.
Yeah.
That's really dope. Thank you for sharing upcoming Jake Palumbo production and things that you're on. I want to make sure that people know how to connect with you if they want to book studio time, if they want their voice to sound the way that Jake Palumbo makes it sound, if they want production, right? What's the best way, the right ways to connect with you for the different businesses that you run?
Okay, so there's www.jakepalumbo.com. My direct email for business inquiries is jakepalumbo@gmail.com.
That's a
Simple,
good
just
one.
my name at Gmail. I'm on Instagram at Jake Palumbo. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all social media pretty much, Jake Palumbo. If you need beats, I have a BeatStars page,
Yeah.
jakepalumbo.beatstars.com. I'm not kidding, there's around 250 tracks up there currently. Like, there's a lot of beats you can peruse through. As far as yeah, I'm definitely, as far as you asked about the studio time and stuff like that. If you're in New York City, you can book studio time with me, and same thing, hit the email, hit me on Instagram or whatever. If you're not in New York City, I do mixing and mastering for people all over the country and all over the world. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter where you are. Like, I have tons and tons of clients that, record wherever they're at.
Yep.
They send me the files. I do the mix and master. We back and forth on whatever notes or revisions, and then,
Yep.
we exchange money electronically. So that can be done. Like, I can still, if you're not in New York, I can still work with you on mixing and mastering, from anywhere in the world. I've got that process streamlined down to
That's
where,
dope.
it runs like a machine.
That's
So,
good. That's
but yeah,
dope.
I'm available. I'm always working. It's like I said, the sum of the parts. I'm still here showing up for, showing up for business every day. So yeah, we can definitely work. And same thing if you need features or anything like that. I'm definitely down to work.
That's awesome. Jake Palumbo, it's an honor to build with you. You're a name that keeps coming up. We were at Jake Palumbo studio. Yeah, that Jake Palumbo beat. Yo, the Jake Palumbo album. And it's truly an honor to build with a Renaissance man right now, making it happen in New York.
I appreciate it, man. This is a really good build, man. Thank you for having me, yo. We'll definitely there's more projects coming, so we'll have to do another one in the future, man.
Absolutely, my brother. When as the Jake Palumbo productions and the Jake Palumbo albums and everything continue to come out, I look forward to building.
Word up, man.
All right.
Thanks for having me, man. This shit was dope.
Thank you, my bro. Salute.
Yes, sir. Peace.